Just to reinforce this with the people who've already heard me twice, this is a spectacular innovation. It's called the rectangular apartment building. Okay. Okay. This and it is. We get his pointer. Yeah. You can tell it's full of exotic and innovative things. This is all of the detail of the building. Otherwise, it is dead plain stucco all the way around, boring as hell. Oh, mil-spec, great. That's a pointer, yeah. That's not a knife. So this is as boring a building as you can once you get past this piece of frontage. Around the back, running all the way to the back where there's no parking, boring stucco, okay? Basic straight ahead windows from 1910 when they went in, you know. And again, this is all of the detail that was installed in the building. Oh yeah, and it's a flat roof with a little fake tile in the front. Okay. This is the Esplanade apartment buildings in Chico, California, where I recently moved from. And this is originally built to be housing for high school teachers, and at a time when young women of good reputation did not live alone. They would live in an apartment hotel with other single professional teachers. In more recent years, it changed hands 4 or 5 times, but this is the apartment that you would go to Chico State and you would take 5 years to get your undergrad and then another 3 to get your grad school, and you're still at Chico State, and you still are on the waiting list to get into this apartment building. Close to downtown, food and drink and everything. It's a great place. And people who got in tell stories like they got a Loeb Fellowship or something, you know. Oh yes, it was so great. I lived there for a whole year before I graduated. 10-foot ceilings, wonderful built-ins, little tile details. I felt so special. I was a princess. It was great, you know. A guy told me that, yeah. Okay, a rectangular box, an apartment building. Okay, I think it is going to be sufficiently radical to, make dignified apartment buildings. I mean, we invented cold fusion when we put the garage in the back of the lot and the porch out the front, and people just lost their shit. You remember that? And we were the people who could do that right. We were rock stars. It's going to get better, okay? Because y'all are going to own these buildings. Because at least 20% of you I'm going to wear you down, and you're going to become developers. Okay? So this is part of the dark arts, and I have to swear you to secrecy. You can't tell anybody this information, okay? Because the only other people who know this is every frickin' developer in the world, okay? So we're going to swear you into that group. Okay, so you can do you have to think about building a building that will cost less to build and operate than you get in rent. So after you've built the building and you paid a bunch of money, and then every month people pay you rent, and you pay the bank, and then you have a pile of money left over. Okay, that's the secret, right? How many people got their lead AP? Okay, how many people have their CNUA? Okay, understanding how an apartment building makes money is way easier than any of those tests, okay? So I know you're capable of doing this. All you people raising your hand, I know you can do this. So if you can get $1.25 a square foot per month in rent, you can afford to build a single stair walk-up building, okay? If you can get $1.50 a month per square foot per rent in most markets, where you're building for $80 to $110 a foot, you can build a 2-stair walk-up building, that has a corridor that connects the stairs. No elevator. About $175, wood frame construction, now you can afford an elevator, okay? $2, now you can do a podium building with an elevator, As much as you might like an elevator, you cannot afford an elevator if you're not getting rent that would support an elevator. Podium is either parking underneath or retail, concrete, and then wood frame above. So the idea that there's not like a smooth graduated experience between what you can get for rent and what you can pay for, okay? It's a harsh reality, and if you can't get the money, you can't go up, okay? So, and never mind, you can do your single story cheap retail down here, single story, But if the planner in town is telling you that their form-based code says you must have mixed use, you know, you put that apartment on top of the ground floor retail. For the purposes of the Fair Housing Act, that second floor is the ground floor and is supposed to be all accessible, which means you need an elevator. So it may be great urbanism, but it's headed toward that climax condition problem we described. So the idea of one-story main streets, successional stuff, it's reinforced by it's like the soils condition or how much wind load you have. If you can't get the rent, you can't build the frickin' building, okay? Okay, we're gonna, everyone, if you can't get the rent, you can't build the frickin' building. Okay, burned into your brains forever. You can't unlearn that, okay? All right, so let's talk about those buildings. Okay, so straight ahead, rectangular building, mixed use, or you could have residential all the way down to the ground, set it back a little bit. The idea here is you're creating 2 commercial spaces, okay, handicap access, and 1 ground floor accessible unit. Fair Housing Act says once you build 4 or more units, all the ground floor units must be accessible, adaptable. I won't make you repeat that, but I might, okay? So again, if you decide as an economic decision that you're going to make this all commercial, okay, then the second floor becomes, for the purposes of civil rights protection, the ground floor that must be accessible, adaptable. So in a small building like this, where you're getting about $1.50 a square foot in rent for residential, you might actually get a little less than that for commercial because it's maybe not in a really prime spot. It's an insurance office, it's a misguided architect's office, whatever, you know. So you're getting $1.25 for the commercial and $1.50 for this. You know, you might actually put 2 of those back there and have little symbolic pieces of commercial. Because early on, a chance to live in an apartment amenitized by food and drink, it might encourage better rent than the office would. But again, the opportunity to put 1 unit on the ground floor. Now, in this building, all ground floor units are accessible, adaptable. All 1 of them. Okay? So that's the hack, that's the workaround. That's a representative of how these building types need to be able to fit within the International Building Code and still work within everyday economics by people who want to pay rent to live next to $2 coffee. So, and upstairs, you can do up to 4 units per floor and up to 3 stories in type 5 wood frame construction under the International Building Code with fire sprinklers. The tricky part is negotiating whether or not it's a mostly residential building so you can use mostly plastic pipe 13R, or do they want you to use steel pipe? So as you look at building sites, you want to be able to ascertain whether or not they're contaminated with bad regulation or a stupid fire marshal. Because that takes a long time to remediate, you know. And I don't know where you bury stupid fire marshals in a container in Utah or what the deal is. Okay, so here's the thresholds for the Anderson-Kim thresholds for a single-story walk-up building. This is 1 type out of about 7 that are really easy lean types. Ground floor accessible unit, okay, type frame construction, single stair, upper stories limited 4 units. Now, there's a technical thing about how far you are from in the farthest piece of the apartment to that stairway that goes through the middle. It's 150 feet on the second floor, 125 on the other. So we've put this passage through so you can park in the back, get into the units, you could put a door on it, and upstairs you put a little study space over it. But this basic center stair arrangement, freestanding building, light all the way around, 80 feet, fits on a 100-foot lot, pretty straightforward. Existing platting, existing zoning, you're not going through a lot of brain damage, you can build lean. Okay, so and this is the classic Dorchester triple-decker, where you know the old widow lady could live in 1 unit and rent out the other 2. It's awesome. Affordable housing like you've never seen. Wood frame construction. So we're pitching the idea that it's important to be able to give people that first step to be a developer you shouldn't be climbing Everest. You should be walking upstairs normally. So a fourplex is an easy way to get going. Because mostly a 4-unit building, it can be financed with any one of these regular old mortgages. So if we're going to have form follow finance, what mortgage can you get? That'll tell you a lot about what building you can build. And also, what was it? If you can't get the rent, you can't build the building. Yes, here we go. All right. So a fourplex, you've decided that being a landscape architect in a large beige monogram design firm based in Dallas, Texas is no longer your life's dream. And you're going to become a developer. You've decided. And your wife didn't divorce you, so you're still going to become a developer. Okay, here we go. You've had a steady job for 2 years. You've got 3.5% down payment. Okay, it's a FHA insured mortgage. You're going to pay private mortgage insurance. You've got enough cash to cover 3 months worth of principal and interest. Your credit score is a whopping 580. Come on. More likely, 640 will get you better treatment, but it can still be fairly low. And you can also get a cosigner if you've had, if it's below 580. And then the idea is the loan can't be any bigger than the money you're making in your salary and from the other 3 units. This will be an owner-occupied unit. The recently separated landscape architect is going to live in one with his lovely wife. So you have rent from the other 3 units. You have your salary. That tells you what the limit is going to be, and you get to use 75% of the rent because you're going to have operating costs on that. So, and you need to live, it needs to be owner-occupied, so you need to live there for at least 12 months, So, in month 13, you can build another one. So, these things can be done in cooperation with an association, with a local nonprofit, with a local for-profit builder, but to have many people be able to build them. Another alternative for getting started would be to take a crappy 5-unit building, which was always hard to finance, and convert it to 4 using the renovation loans that FHA has. So here it is. This is the form follows Finex fourplex. Wonderfully alliterative, courtesy of my partner David Kim. We came up with this just in the depths of the recession. I wanted to call it the form follows the smoking crater of what used to be finance fourplex, but that didn't take. It wasn't as alliterative. The idea is with an FHA mortgage, you can have up to 20% non-residential in the building and get a regular 30-year mortgage for it. So it's actually a 5-unit building because you've got some commercial space here. Okay? And as it turns out, that's exactly 19.5% of the square footage of the building. Only because we made a really big bike locker and carved out a piece of it. Okay? So you need to work these workarounds and hacks to the existing regs and rules that, so if you're looking for variances and help and relief, you focus that effort on the things that really need relief. But if we can build a regular old rectangular fourplex with existing finance and existing building codes and everything else, we don't need to flex those rules. So this could be a nice live-work owner's unit, or live-work here and rent it out, and then 3 units up. Wide, shallow, wide to the street or narrow end to the street, either one would work. And this will fit on a 50 by 100 lot. So standard platting, standard rectangular buildings. Anytime you put more corners on a foundation, that only adds costs. Any builder will tell you that. So armed with this sort of approach to these fairly low-tech, not very demanding buildings, we can do a lot of infill and we can open things up for folks that are in the trades that want to build and own buildings and create wealth, for immigrants, for people with large families that want to have family compounds. So we want to be able to marry the financing tools with the building types, with the nuts and bolts advice from the builder in a box. That's the 23 PDFs and the 32 spreadsheets you can't live without. We'll be developing those tools and circulating them, getting feedback, critique. So we will have a good, organized approach so we're really clear on our objectives. So there will be kind of a seam allowance between kind of the upper limit of what could be built in a lean setting. Maybe, maybe that's the elevator or not. But there are a lot of things from the elevator and frame building down, no podium, no structured parking, none of that. There's a lot of buildings that can get built that fill in all those gap teeth places that we all know about. So, thank you very much. Oh, helpful hint before we do the discussion. Tomorrow, for all of you who've had that epiphany that says, my God, he's right, I have to be a developer. For those, we have a support group for you. We're going to have the second annual Rookie Developers Breakfast at the Flying Horse Cafe. We're going to get our coffee and go down to the park. And we're going to set up a buddy system so that basically if you're too much of a pussy to do it on your own, your buddy is going to call you and say, hey, I'm down at the lumberyard. Where are you? Okay. Like I'm at the gym. We were going to work out. What's the deal? Okay. So building types, we're going to be pulling together built examples, new prototypes, lots of stuff. There's a lot of interest in that from this network. We would invite everybody's participation. Fair warning for people that feel really protective of their design of the rectangular building. Okay, this shit's all open source. We're sending it everywhere. Okay, we want people to reskin it. Here's the invention of the sharpened stick. Okay, go poke somebody with it. Come on, We're not doing high design. We're doing chassis that other people are going to customize. So open source buildings, building types, open source information about pro formas and everything else. Our competition is the people building shit out by the freeway. It's not other people building infill. Urban conditions for urban civilization for people to live in real neighborhoods is something that defies the laws of supply and demand. The more we build of this, the better the neighborhood gets, the more demand there is for it. So that's the kind of business I want to be in, as opposed to trying to sell consulting services to some city. So if I could just summon some firm opinions about these things, I think we can move forward. So thank you very much.